All right, all right, all right. How y'all doing? Once I get that mic unmuted, maybe we can get some sound going up in here. My name is 12 Gauge, and happy Friday to everybody. I wanted to get on here a little earlier because I noticed that a lot of other creators are having their streams about the same time I was going to start mine. So didn't really want a conflict of interest in any way whatsoever. So I thought I'd go ahead and get on here and present what I want to present. As it looks, it's just going to be myself. So at least for now. So that that's fine with me. I'm used to that. Um. Anyway, let me go ahead and start off by saying what I always say. If you're new to the channel, thank you for being here. I hope that you find something that interests you and something that allows you to keep coming back. If you're a returning person, thank you for coming back and thank you for giving my channel a chance to entertain you with some of the commentary, some of the videos that I present, and some of the theories that I hold true to. Not everything that I state is going to be received positively, and I'm okay with that. Let me give a little bit of chat rules if you guys decide to come on in here. Please keep it classy. Please try to understand that everybody's opinion is valid, and we agree to disagree in here. So let's try to watch the profanity and let's try to watch any kind of behavior that could be disruptive to not only myself but to the chat as well. So that being stated, I just want to say hello once again to everybody who's watching. Once again, my name is 12 Gauge and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I want to talk a little bit before I get into the case to give you kind of a background of what I'm going to talk about tonight. It's called Last Call Killer. Why did serial killers target sex workers? This is off the wall type topic because most of the time people don't really pay that close attention to the victims, especially if they are sex workers or they have any kind of addiction or any kind of issue that keeps them being a priority to law enforcement, whether they go missing, whether they're reported to have some kind of issue that caused them to have come, you know, be murdered or something of that nature, something nefarious. So the cases that I'm going to identify tonight, that I'm going to go over, are dealing with those type issues. In one case, it's not so much about sex workers, but it's going to be talking about an individual that blended in with society, that was able to blend in, and he went unabated for a while. He due to blending in, he went unabated and wasn't even really a suspect for a while. In the other case, there's definitely an individual that was riding around looking for sex workers and ultimately did take their lives. So, two different cases, two different scenarios, and I'm going to outline a little bit of an understanding as to why this type of work is seen as high risk. Um, and we're going to start with the A&E. Let me make that bigger. The A&E article. Good grief, you still can't see it very good. Let me change the camera function here. Well, I deleted some of the important ones that I had before, so I'm sorry about that. Let me try this view. At least you can see it. I'm going to read it to you, so you really don't need to see a lot of it. I put the link down in the description if you want to go back and read it. It says serial killers have long targeted prostitutes, from Jack the Ripper, an uncaught murderer who terrorized streetwalkers in the late 19th century London, to the Long Island serial killer, an uncaught murderer whose last confirmed victim disappeared in September 2010 after advertising sex work on Craigslist. And I did a little bit of a stream on that last night. Um, Other killers apprehended have given investigators more detailed stories of their motivations. Robert Hansen, who came to be known as the Butcher Baker, said he thought prostitutes were evil, so he kidnapped them from Anchorage and then hunted them in the Alaskan wild. The so-called torso killer, Richard Cottingham, professes to have acted on a sociopathic, sadistic sexual impulse. I've probably done anything a man would want to do with a woman, Cottingham told one interviewer. But the sex worker serial murder victim isn't just a stereotype. It's a dominant demographic reality. According to a recent study, 22% of confirmed U.S. serial murder victims between 1970 and 2009 were known prostitutes, and those numbers were climbing. Over the last decade, 43% of victims were sex workers. Considering the prostitutes make up just over 3% of the nation as a whole, those numbers are staggering. Yes, they are. Very staggering. It's such a dangerous profession to get into, says Eric Hickey, a social psychologist and the author of Serial Murderers and Their Victims. Being a prostitute increases your chance of being murdered by 200 times. He says, with killers perhaps coldly calculating that they're easily disposed of and they're not going to be missed. And that is a misconception a lot of times, that these workers are not going to be missed, so it's easier to dispose of them, to, for them to be found, because in reality, and I'm not trying to be callous, but who's looking for them? Police negligence. One reason a serial killer might target prostitutes, because he believes the police won't look as hard for a missing sex worker as they will for a more respectable victim. And a lot of times, as you follow these cases, you're going to find that out. He wouldn't be wrong. In his book, Lost Girl, journalist Robert Coker exposed how multiple police departments failed to investigate the disappearances of several sex workers whose remains were later discovered buried near one another on Oak Beach in Long Island, New York. The Long Island serial killer quickly became national news, bringing immense pressure on the Suffolk County Police Department investigating the case. But the missing women were still isolated cases, and the police gave scant work hours to solving their whereabouts. So a lot of times, the only people that really identify these people as being missing are the family members. People that love and care about them, people that wonder, hey, what's going on? Where's my loved one? I haven't heard from them in a couple days, couple weeks. There's a tremendous amount of crime out there. They're never going to solve everything, and so they play the numbers. They look at a woman who is over 21 years old and who is missing and is a sex worker, and they think the person leads an itinerant life and may not even be in trouble. Meanwhile, there are 16 other cases staring them in the face that they have a better chance of solving. Hickey agrees, adding that the police antipathy for sex worker further frayed the lines of communication. Because sex work is illegal in most of the county or in the country, prostitutes are far less likely than the general population to report victimization of themselves and their colleagues to the police. Generally, police are not real fond of prostitutes because there tends to be another kind of crime going on when there's prostitution in the area, he says. And so when someone goes missing, maybe one of their friends who is also a prostitute might go and report it. But usually from the stories we hear, there are 2 or 3 prostitutes who disappear before they start to get a little nervous. That's that's intense right there. Two or three go missing before the rest of them get a little nervous. That that's intense right there. With the Long Island serial killer case, Kalkner note that when the last victim, Amber Lynn Costello, disappeared, neither Costello's sister nor her close friends reported her missing because they too were involved in sex work and didn't wish to call the police attention to themselves. It's a major factor and something that everyone knows, says Coker, including the killers. Here's the real reason: the crime of opportunity. In planning their murders, serial killers often try to bring their victim to a location beyond police detection or Good Samaritan intervention. Here, too, many prostitutes are vulnerable, especially those who don't work from a brothel, but instead go to secluded locations with their Johns. And because of the nature of their work, there's also an obvious sexual component to the relationship. Often a key motivator for serial murderers, about two-thirds of all male serial killers are sexually involved with their victims in some way. Prostitutes, he adds, are low-hanging fruit. To target people who aren't sex workers, serial killers often have to scheme. They might feign injury to gain their sympathy, as Ted Bundy did, or spend weeks stalking their victim to detect vulnerabilities and habits. But when the killers target prostitutes, it can be as simple as negotiating a fee from across a car window. It just takes a lot more planning to go after someone who is more educated, more socially savvy. A prostitute is streetwise, but only to a certain extent. So opportunity is one of the reasons. Like it just said, there's not a lot of planning that goes along there. It's like, okay, I want to get on the internet, I want to search, escorts, or I want to look at certain people. I'm going to call them up. I'm going to set something up, and then I'm gonna go and take care of what I want to do, and possibly annihilate the prostitute or the worker. Prostitutes are also regularly dehumanized in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the public, and in the eyes of the killer themselves. At his sentencing hearing, Gary Ridgway, the so-called Green River Killer, who was convicted of more than 48 murders, summed this up when he said, "I pick prostitutes as my victims because I hate most prostitutes. I also picked prostitutes because they were easy to pick up without being noticed. I knew that they would not be reported missing. I picked prostitutes because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted without getting caught." Now, if that's not blatant inhumanity, I don't know what is. Hello, Southwest Firefly. How are you doing today? In the Long Island serial killer case, Coulter note that one alleged victim, Shannon Gilbert, ran around Oak Beach for hours on the night she went missing, calling 911, knocking on neighbors' doors, begging for help. There was video monitoring in the gated community where she was killed. As is often the case with video surveillance systems, the tape automatically deletes and records over itself after a day or two. Had someone in the community thought to keep the footage, or had police thought to ask for it, the Long Island serial killer's identity might have been revealed. Kalkner said the tape wouldn't have certainly been saved if there was somebody in the community who was running around screaming. They were looking at the women who went screaming at the others, says Kalkner. There's a version of something we all do. I live on the street. I know my neighbors. If someone's screaming on the street and someone to be in general distress, I might call 911 or I might not call 911. But I will check to see if someone I know first. And that is preconceived programming there. It really is. I'm going to see if I know this person first before I call 911. The neighborly indifference gives space for sadistic killers to play out their darkest desire. It's about fantasy, says Hickey. I think that men who focus serially on women like that, there's a fantasy. I can have sex with them. I can do whatever I want. So that kind of sums up that article. So we learned it was a crime of opportunity, and usually the others are viewed as disposable. and they're not going to be missed by a lot of people, which is sad. Which is sad. I'm all over this screen tonight. I got to refix it after I get off here. I apologize for um, me jumping around there. I'm trying to figure it all out. I didn't realize I deleted the good view. So let's look at another article and then we will get on to the videos that I want to show you tonight. Hope that you can see that. This is the Center for Crime and Justice Studies. This is a study that was done by Kevin Haggerty and Ariane Elderbrook. They examined the culture and historical context of serial killing. So, said the study of serial killers has been dominated by an individualized focus on studying the biography of offenders and causes of their behavior. Popular representations of Jeffrey Dahmer, Harold Shipman, John Wayne Gacy, and other notorious figures emphasize the sociopathic tendencies of the lone serial killer, presented in accounts that accentuate how assorted personality traits and risk factors ostensibly contribute to their otherwise unfathomable behavior. While this emphasis on personal biography lends itself to much needed psychological analysis, the cumulative effect of such accounts is that serial killing can appear ahistorical and acultural, as though such predispositions might manifest themselves in identical ways, irrespective of context. In fact, serial killing is intimately tied to its broader social and historical setting, something that is particularly apparent when such killing is considered in relation to a series of broad historical changes that have occurred over approximately the past 400 500 years, commonly associated with the rise of modernity. So while throughout human history there have probably always been individuals who engaged in serial predation, in previous eras it was not possible for an individual to be a serial killer. Serial killing is a distinctively modern phenomenon, a product of relatively recent social and cultural conditions to which criminologists can provide fresh insight by accentuating the broad institutional framework, motivations, and opportunity structures within which serial killing occurs. So it didn't exist 400 or 500 years ago. It's it's pretty new. I mean, it's really interesting to know that because I think up until Jack the Ripper, it really wasn't looked into as a phenomenon. Serial killing is the rarest form of homicide, occurring when an individual has killed three or more people who were previously unknown to him or her, with a cooling off period between each murder. So, let's take the one case that we all are fixated on. Had they not caught that suspect in that crime, would there have been a killing off period? Would there have been more victims had they not caught him after a month or so of of looking for him? Has there been any killings since that are copycat murders? None that I've not heard of. Um, the definition is accepted by both police and academic experts and therefore provides a useful frame of reference. Unfortunately, it also narrowed the analysis of such crime as it failed to incorporate many of the familiar, although not inevitable, characteristics of serial killing. These include such things as diverse influences of the mass media on serial killers as well as their tendency to select victims for particular walks of life. We just heard, probably last week, about the individual that killed Rachel Morin. He wasn't a serial killer, but he killed two people. He killed Rachel and he killed another lady in El Salvador before crossing the border. So and he assaulted one in Los Angeles. So could he have potentially had the capability to become a serial killer based on this definition? Um, I lost my place. Hold on. Here we briefly identify three aspects of serial killing that are often taken for granted, but they are intimately tied to the emergence of serial killer or serial murder in its contemporary guise. These include the rise of a society of strangers, the development of a culture of celebrity, and cultural frameworks of degeneration and marginalization. Society of strangers, mass urbanization is a distinctive characteristic of the modern era, something that has profoundly altered the nature of human relationships by virtue of generating an unprecedented degree of anonymity. Good God. In pre-modern societies, individuals knew one another by name, often having intimate knowledge of their neighbor's family history, daily routines, and personal predictions. Strangers were rarely encountered, and when encountered, were the subject of rumor and suspicion. The average medieval citizen might have only met 100 strangers during the course of their entire life, a number markedly low by contemporary standards, where one could confront hundreds of strangers simply on a daily commute to work. That is so true. Ask yourself, how many strangers did you bump into today? How many individuals did you encounter on social media? How many strangers did you encounter at the grocery store, at Walmart, at Target, at the mall, dropping your kids off at school, soccer practice, baseball practice, softball practice? So it means that being able to be a society where we're intermingling with different variety of strangers lead to the possibility of one of them potentially being a serial killer. Okay, so this development also proved to be a key precondition for the emergence of the serial murderer, given that a defining attribute of serial killers is that they prey on strangers, something that distinguishes them from the vast majority of homicides. Did you just hear that? They prey on strangers. Defining attribute of serial killers, preying on strangers, something that distinguishes them from the vast majority of homicides, which typically involve some form of prior relationship between the killer and the victim. So, if we're looking at cases that we know, how many of them were strangers? How many of them knew each other? There's a hot ass case right now that everybody in the world is talking about where there is a huge debate about whether the killer knew the victims or whether he didn't. And there's also testimony that state that he did not. So, based on that, look at this. It's a defining attribute is that they prey on strangers, something that distinguishes them from the vast majority of homicides, which typically involve some form of prior relationship between the killer and the victim. So, a homicide would be like a domestic violence situation gone wrong. You take it too far, you end up killing your partner, it's a homicide. A serial killer doesn't know you. Sees you at the market, follows you out to the parking lot, abducts you, takes you to the park, and kills you. Does that 4 or 5 times, all of a sudden, you've developed a pattern. They try to tie this into somebody, they have a hard time because they don't know how this individual knows these people other than he just plucking them at random. How many serial killers have you heard about that have gone to bars and sat there and scoped out their prey? Like just looking around, hey, who am I gonna take home tonight and kill? Who could it possibly be? If I'm Ted Bundy, I'm attracted to brunettes. So whatever brunette, petite, that's gonna be the one. And that was his type. So that would be the type of individual that Bundy would be attracted to. Thus, dense modern urban environments represent ideal settings for the routinized interpersonal encounters that operate as a hallmark of serial killing. Okay, let's not really talk about the celebrity stuff. Marginalization. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of serial murder is that such killings appear random. This, however, is a misleading characterization, for while serial killers do target strangers, their victims are not haphazard. Rather, the victims of serial killers tend to be mimic the wider cultural categories of denigration characteristics of contemporary society. All societies have their own distinctive structures of symbolic denigration, where certain classes of people are positioned as outcasts or lesser human. So that's why we get into the prostitutes, the sex workers, the drug addicts, the individual, the homeless, the people that are singled out by modern institutions for reprobation, censure, and marginalization are also disproportionately, God, I need to learn how to read again, the targets of serial killers who tend to prey upon vagrants, the homeless, prostitutes, migrant workers, homosexuals, children, the elderly, and the hospital patients. Gerald Stano likened the killing of his victim to no different than stepping on a cockroach. Now, is that not tragic? Is that not tragic? In Southwest Firefly, yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. Hey, Fran, how you doing? Hey, Paula. Hey, Rondi. Um, Stepping on a cockroach. Wow. Such a statement keenly demonstrates the extent to which serial killers embrace and reproduce the wider cultural codings that they have devalued, stigmatized, and marginalized specific groups. Through a distorted mirror, serial killers reflect back and act upon society's distinctive valuations. Before I go much further, I added a new subscribe button to the right hand corner. I don't know if you can see it on yours if you're watching this on YouTube, but just hit the subscribe button in the right hand corner. And if you enjoy the content, hit the like button. Okay. So I made it a little easier to subscribe. If Let me know if you can see that red button. If Rondi, if you can put yes or no, you can see it. That way I know whether it's visible. Thank you. Recognizing the dynamics of victim marginalization is particularly germane of the study of serial killers, for the denigration of particular social groups is connected to specific opportunity structures for murder. Criminologists have emphasized the importance of opportunity structures as a means of ascertaining the increased likelihood of criminal behavior in certain contexts, noting that crime is more likely to occur when there is a combination of possible victim accessible to predation, a motivated offender, and a lack of competent guardians. So that's saying, like, if there's a serial killer and there's opportunity, um, and there is lack of guardianship. Like, let's say that you don't have security that well. I think it's on the YouTube one. I don't think it's on the StreamYard. So if you're on YouTube and you see the red button, please hit subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Thank you. Um, it also says that victims of serial killers tend to be drawn from modern society's disposable classes, can mean that these victims are outside the effective systems of guardianship and are targeted not only because they were more accessible, but also because their deaths are less likely to generate timely investigation or legal consequences. So what we're seeing here is that if somebody is not being monitored, let's say somebody's not really taking care of what they need to do as far as watching somebody, let's say a child is not being monitored, that child is going to be a lot easier to be abducted and taken and possibly, murdered based on what this is saying because there's lack of supervision. The modern phenomenon, while serial killing is routinely presented as the unfathomable behavior of the lone, decontextualized And sociopathic individual, here we have emphasized the unnervingly familiar modern face of serial killing. Several distinctively modern phenomena, including anim, ah, anonymity, a culture of celebrity enabled through the rise of mass media, the specific cultural frameworks of denigration, each provide key institutional frameworks, motivations, and opportunity structures for analyzing such acts, to exclusively focus on etiology and the offender biology, systematically ignores this larger social context and eludes a more nuanced understanding of the hows and whys of serial killing. So I hope you understood that. Let me kind of break it down for you in very simplified form. When it comes to killers, let me see if I remember these correctly. There's four things they need. They usually have an urge, opportunity, um, they have a fantasy, or it's just a spree killing. It's something that just came on and they needed to feed that need, so to speak. I don't know if that makes sense or not, guys. But here I'm gonna show you a couple videos here. The first one is about streetwalkers. I shared the link in the description if you want to go back and watch this. Um, man, I'm gonna have to fix that because I totally messed up my windows. Let me see if I can. That makes it better. I guess it does. This individual's name is Robert Lee Yates Jr. He's from Spokane, Washington. And he was very into killing prostitutes. Let's watch this. Let me ask you a question, guys, in chat. Is it interesting to you that most killers, when they're killing a prostitute and they use a gun, okay? There's one right there, Warnos. She used a 25 caliber or a 357, I think, or 25. I'm not certain. I'm not thinking clearly tonight. I was talking about the Idaho 4 case before this stream, and it kind of jumbled up my brain. I had the presentation already. Now I have that in my brain, thinking about that a little bit. But um, she killed people with a handgun. I think it was a 25 cal. This individual used a 25 cal. When they use a gun, it's usually a small caliber handgun. I mean, at 25, you'd have to shoot somebody more than once or really in a perfect shot in order to kill them, I would think. I'm not for certain. I'm not a gun expert, but that's what I've heard. Hey, Chad, do y'all think that being in the war, do you think he got a thirst for blood, a thirst for the killing because it did say he was a war hero? So do you believe that he got a thirst for it? Like once you get that taste, they say a lot of times that's what kind of elevates people from just being normal to being hunters of people. You know what I mean? Do you believe that? Because I mean, he was a war hero, so he could have got that taste. And when he came home, he just had that urge, and whenever he couldn't overcome that urge, like right here, he just took out two kids, 22 years old, friends, having a picnic, and he took them out, just like nothing. Just like that other guy said, it's like squashing a cockroach. That's sad. That is real sad. That's terrible. That's terrible that you view another person as just something that's disposable. You're barely covering them up. That's like I don't have enough dignity for this person who I just took their life. I'm just gonna leave them here, barely covered. And I'm gonna like you guys said, I'm going to cover your head, make sure the blood doesn't get on my car because I care about my car more than I care about you. And do you believe that he possibly had that ability to um to get that from the war? I mean, do you believe that he could go to another place and take himself to feed that urge to kind of blink out of reality and do what he needed to do and treat it just like he was still in the war? Do y'all think so or not? Do you think I'm stretching a little bit there?
And then he gets
Stating that, do you believe that because he was in a war that he was reliving past experiences, maybe when he was killing, not giving him a get out of jail free card or anything like that. I'm just saying, do you think he blinked out when he committed these crimes like he had to in the war, because you got to kind of just go on muscle memory and everything else in order to kill. Do you think the urge to kill was so great that he would blink out whenever he killed these women? In the Pullman. Man, what's in that water up there in that area? Is it like serial killer water? They drink that up there or what? I mean, there's a lot of killings in Oregon, a lot of killings in Washington, a lot of killing, all over that area. I know there's a lot of killings all over the world, but it just seems like there's a lot in the past has been reported about that area of the Northwest. That is a bit of irony, isn't it? To be in the prison that you once worked in 25 years ago, that is insane. Well, that concludes my program for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't already. I thought I had the subscribe button on the corner of the screen, but I guess it's not working or something. I gotta go. I gotta go fix that before I go live again. But thank y'all so much for being in the chat and being classy and keeping it, friendly. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back on Sunday for doing the Serene stream on Sunday. I don't know about what time, but I will definitely be doing that. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much. Y'all be safe out there.